Good afternoon. I was trying to decide afternoon or evening. We're going with afternoon. It is Tuesday, December 13th, 3:02 p.m. Central Standard Time, local time here in Oklahoma City. I'm at home if you can't tell. No green screen effects around here. We don't got that kind of budget on this channel. So, what is going on in the world? Well, real quick with me, I do have a load booked. I am leaving the house. I take a lot of time off. I've talked about this in previous videos, but to me, trucking, I treat it more like the RV life. I drive when I want, I take time off when I want, and I go where I want. Like if I get in the mood, like if I'm down in Laredo, Texas, and it's just really hot, I will look for a load to get me way up north to somewhere where it's a nice, cool temperature. I do things like that. A lot of the times I follow the freight and I just, if I see an amazing paying load, that's what I take. But, a lot of the times I also, go to places where I specifically want to go. But anyway, I do have a load booked. I will be leaving in the morning and picking up a load in Fort Smith, Arkansas. It has a drop in Amarillo and then a final in Abilene, Texas. 12,000 pounds of HVAC units for Ream Rude. I don't know what the difference between their two brands are, Ream and Rude, RUUD. I'm guessing one is residential and the other one's commercial. I don't know. Um, but yeah, that's what's going on with me. I do have a load, and I pick it up tomorrow morning. It's a preloaded trailer that I can pick up all day tomorrow or tomorrow night, whenever in the hell I want to pick it up. But I do plan on picking it up like as soon as it's ready, first thing in the morning. Um, so I'm probably gonna leave the house at like 3 or 4 a.m. and I want to have the truck like moving by 6 a.m. at the latest. But that's what's going on with me. Now let's talk about what's going on in the world. Um, well, Biden has been telling us that we're stupid for thinking that the government has any kind of control whatsoever on fuel prices. And then he eased sanctions on Venezuela, and fuel prices dropped by like $1.40 a gallon by him opening up some leasing in Venezuela. The government controls leasing and permits, and they're a regulatory body over the fossil fuel industry. So they have a tremendous amount of control over the productive capacity of the fossil fuel industry in the United States. And they even control the fossil fuel industry outside the United States. So like for the Biden administration to come out and mock everybody and be very condescending and tell us that they don't have any control whatsoever over fuel prices is just, it's a bold lie. And unfortunately, there's a lot of uneducated people that are just ignorant of how the world works, and they believe the propaganda that these politicians spew out. But yeah, it's fuel prices have dropped about $1.38 a gallon here in Oklahoma City. The fuel prices are very volatile. They haven't stabilized yet. Whenever you have a huge change in pricing over a short period of time, it creates a tremendous amount of volatility. Like back whenever Russia invaded Ukraine and we put the sanctions on Russia, we had a huge increase in fuel prices in a short amount of time, and it created a tremendous amount of volatility. So like one day, my fuel discount at the TA here in town would be 10 cents a gallon. The next day it would be $1.25 a gallon. And like my price would fluctuate. What I paid at the pump here in Oklahoma City would fluctuate by like $1 a gallon on a daily basis. It was just bouncing all over the place. And that's where we're at right now with fuel prices. They're still moving around. They're not fluctuating as wildly as they were, a few weeks ago. They're starting to stabilize, but they're still in that volatile phase where we have, one station on one side of the town's charging $1 more than another station on the other side of town. They haven't really figured out where they want to price things at yet. So that's one of the things going on in the world right now is, well, in the United States at least, is fuel prices. Um, have dropped dramatically, like a dollar. Like what I pay at the pump right now, my raw fuel price here in Oklahoma City is 282 a gallon. It was 420 a gallon last time I left the house. October 25th when I left the house, 420 a gallon at the TA here in town. Now at the TA Petro, it's actually the Petro in town. It's 282 a gallon. Now that's my price after discount and after taking away fuel tax, which is like 19 cents a gallon. That's the price that I look at. I'll show you. So here is what Landstar's fuel app looks like. And I'm going to click on the Petro. And I'll pull up so you can see how how it's broken down there. So 282 a gallon is my price. The pump price is 375 a gallon. Landstar discount is 74 cents a gallon. And the IFTA tax credit is 19 cents a gallon. So my raw fuel price is 282 a gallon. That's the price that I go off of in determining where I fuel. So what else is going on? And as far as the fuel prices go, I don't know where they're going to stabilize at. The Democrats still have their war on fossil fuels. They haven't given up on that. The only reason that they have opened up production to Venezuela, which Venezuela has the largest oil reserves in the world. Saudi Arabia is number 2. The only reason that they've opened up oil in Venezuela, nothing's really changed there, but they opened up oil in Venezuela because they're terrified that they're all going to get voted out of office in the next election cycle because the economy is in a downward spiral right now. And fuel is the backbone of the economy. High fuel prices are really bad for the economy. Low fuel prices are really good for the economy. So there are two things that happened recently. So you can tell that the Democrats have changed their agenda and they're focused on the next election cycle because there's two major changes they made. They backpedaled on their war on fossil fuels and they opened up Chevron. They gave Chevron leases in Venezuela, and that dropped fuel prices dramatically. Also, the Federal Reserve, which is semi-controlled by the federal government, is changing their direction on interest rates. High interest rates are really bad for the economy. Low interest rates are really good for the economy. High interest rates are really good for currency value. Low interest rates are really bad for currency value. So the Federal Reserve is trying to walk this tightrope of controlling inflation without crashing the economy. And they've done a U-turn. They were aggressively raising interest rates, and now they're like, they said that they're going to slow down on raising interest rates. We'll have to wait and see what they actually do, but it looks like they're going to stop raising interest rates. They might even lower interest rates a little bit. If the Federal Reserve starts lowering interest rates and the fuel prices stay down and keep going down, even if they just stay where they're at right now, or they go down a little bit, if the Federal Reserve starts lowering interest rates on top of that, the economy could start coming back up. We could see a rebound in the economy in a few months. So I don't know. We'll have to see what happens, but it looks like the focus of the Democrats has changed from destroying the country to getting reelected. So we'll have to see what happens. Politicians have a tremendous amount of control over our lives, and we'll just have to see what they do. So what else is going on in the world? California. Talked about this in the past. Freight over in California sucks. California is a very anti-business state. They have these social, like, they're an extremely far left state. And, social programs, I forgot who said this. I think it was Margaret Thatcher that said that social programs are great until you run out of other people's money. Well, businesses have been fleeing California. And California has just become so anti-business because they just keep building up these social programs using other people's money, and they're bankrupting the state. It's just a very, I hate California. I just really hate California. It's just a so there's been like a straw that broke the camel's back with businesses in California, and it's mainly with shipping and receiving that I'm talking about. So the straw that broke the camel's back was shipping and receiving, because California already has a lot of anti-trucking laws in place. They're, CARB and all that stuff, but there are two things that happened right around July 1st. Number one, the port worker contract ended. So the port workers could go on strike at any moment. Ever since they've been off contract, they can strike at any time they want. Also, AB5, the anti-trucker independent contractor law, went into effect that same week. And that's created a tremendous amount of uncertainty in California. So shipping and receiving has been diverted around California. Shippers and receivers are bypassing California if possible. Now, the large container ships are kind of forced to offload in California at the Port of LA and Long Beach. They can't fit through the Panama Canal. And I don't think there's any other ports. I know that there's not any other ports in the United States along the West Coast for them to offload at. I don't know if there's, ports big enough in like Mexico or somewhere south that they might be able to offload at. But those container ships are basically stuck offloading in LA. Most of the other container ships that can fit through the Panama Canal are offloading in Houston, Savannah, New York, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Wisconsin, Chicago. Is like the main freight hub in the country right now. As far as Landstar's load board goes, there's more freight coming out of the Chicago area than anywhere in the country by a vast margin. Now, supposedly New York is the biggest hub for freight in the country right now. They've overtaken Los Angeles. But on Landstar's load board, that's not the case. So Landstar's load board may not be completely representative of the overall freight market. So what's the whole deal? Why am I talking about California? Freight rates coming out of California are normally premium rates because there's so much freight that is offloaded in the LA area and then redistributed across the country. So normally you just get showered with money hauling freight out of the LA area. Loads going into California pay next to nothing because everyone wants to go there and get showered with money. Well, the loads coming out of California now are paying like half what they were 6 months or a year ago. So they're not paying very, very well. Those loads that were paying like $8,000 to go from LA to Jacksonville, now those loads are paying like $4,000. They're like almost break-even loads. You can't hardly make any money on them anymore. So there's the 2935 corridor that goes up the central United States. So Laredo, Dallas, Oklahoma City, Kansas City, Omaha, Sioux Falls, South Dakota, Fargo, North Dakota. Draw a line through all those cities, and that's the 2935 corridor. West of that is a freight desert until you get to the coastal cities, your LAs, Sacramentos, Portlands, Seattles. In between there is just a big freight desert. There are loads, but there's so few of them that they pay next to nothing. They're break-even loads. You might even run at a loss hauling these loads. Especially in the current market, you're probably going to run at a loss hauling those loads. So West Coast drivers typically will run from the coast all the way over to the central US or further, and then they'll grab a load going all the way back over to the coast. A triangle that I used to run about 15 years ago was the Seattle, Portland area, down to the LA area, and then back over to the Midwest, like Indianapolis, and then back over to the Seattle, LA, Midwest, Seattle, LA. That was the triangle that I ran like 15 years ago when I was an over-the-road driver for a small carrier. And that's a pretty, I would think, common triangle for people to run. But with the freight rates along the west, like Seattle and Portland are not very good. You usually get paid a premium to go into those areas, but loads coming out of those areas pay next to nothing. So you would take a cheap load down to LA and then get a big load back out. Well, you can't do that anymore. The loads coming out of the LA area pay next to nothing. So I don't think it's viable to be a West Coast truck driver right now. Now, if you have access to contract freight or, some type of specialized or whatever, then yeah, you can probably still operate wherever. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about people that are just like basically running spot market or running random loads off of Landstar's load board. The rates, the only reason that you operate west of the 2935 corridor is because of the big rates that you can get out of the California market. And those rates are gone. So basically what it means is now the entire western half of the United States is a freight desert. You can find loads that pay really well going into places like Seattle and Portland. And now they've even started paying a premium to get people to go into California. But getting back out of those places is not easy. It's nothing but cheap freight. And it is a very long distance from the West Coast back to the central United States. You're talking like 1,400 miles minimum to get back over into a decent freight market. So don't be careful about being lured over to the West Coast with good paying loads. Look and see what your options are to get back out of there. What else? Let me pause this a second. I got an email. All right. So, that should pretty much cover the West Coast and, the western half of the U.S. Just be careful operating west, these days. Another thing, I talked about this almost a year ago. I said that, the freight market was going to take a downturn. Fuel prices were going to rise, and we were going to get to a point where it was going to be hard to move jobs. And I said that if there is a move that you want or need to make, start making it now, because the worse things get, the harder it's going to be to move. And right now, things have already started it's starting to get hard to move. I've talked with some people on like the truckers subreddit, and they're looking for jobs and they can't find jobs. They're putting in applications and nobody is contacting them back. So this is yet another reminder or suggestion that things are pretty bad right now, but they're not real bad yet. And I think they are going to get real bad in 2023. So if there is a move that you need to make, you might not be able to make it right now, but you still might be able to make it right now. If you need to make a move, like if you need to change carriers or change jobs or whatever, get it done. Stop procrastinating, because the longer you wait, the harder it's going to be. And there's likely going to be a point next year whenever we start seeing hiring freezes at trucking companies. Like, I'm not saying it's going to get as bad as it did during the lockdowns, but back during the lockdowns, Landstar had a hiring freeze. There were a lot of companies that I contacted that had hiring freezes during the lockdowns because I was looking to leave USA Truck, and a lot of companies had hiring freezes. So whenever the freight market starts getting bad, companies start getting really picky, and they just stop hiring altogether. So if there's a move you need to make, try to see if you can make it. You might not even be able to get that exact thing that you're wanting to do right now, because companies have already started laying off. Companies have already started furloughing. Let me do a quick Google search. I think there was a couple of big LTL companies that were doing some big layoffs. Let me pause this. All right, so let's just flip over here and we'll browse through this. I mean, just typing in layoff and looking through the Google News, Pluralsight, a company I've never heard of, a Utah tech unicorn, cut about 400 workers. Cisco, 5% layoffs. PSSI, a meatpacking cleaning firm, to lay off Worthington employees after JBS ends its contract. Stigma lifts around layoffs. Fewer people view them as a secret mark of shame. Blah, blah, blah. Which comes first, the recession or layoffs? We're already worried. U.S. supermarket mega carrier or mega merger raises mass layoff fears. Lenovo confirms layoffs will impact local North Carolina workforce. Stellantis to idle Illinois plant, lay off more than 1,000 workers, citing rising costs for electric vehicles. I mean, it's just articles after articles, just tons and tons and tons of layoffs are happening right now. Let's do trucking. Let's do LTL. LTL carriers dialing down labor expenses as volumes sag. Leading LTLs cutting headcounts, terminals as retail demand, blah, blah, blah. Huge layoffs, including thousands at Amazon and FedEx in peak shipping season. So we are still in the middle of peak season right now, and they're laying off people right now. This is the time of year when they usually bring in seasonal workers. They need extra people, and they're laying off people right now. That is how bad things are. Think about how bad it's going to be next quarter in our slow quarter. LTL carriers point to shrinking tonnage in November. Some of Landair's 450 employees terminated via Zoom video call. That was back in July 8th. This is July 6th, 2 weeks ago. FedEx Freight to begin driver furloughs on Sunday. This is pretty big news. This is 2 weeks ago. Let's see how many. Do they list? Voluntary leave to run until March 6th. So you can take voluntary leave, a furlough, until March 6th. Basically take 3 months off. How many people? Do they say? And they're offering drivers a $300 weekly incentive to accept a furlough. So you're still getting a $300 a week check. That's pretty cool. I would probably do that. in all honesty, I would probably opt for the 3 months off. The total payments will be made when the drivers return to work. So they're not going to get any money for the 3 months, but whenever they come back to work, what if they don't come back to work? What if you fire them instead of bringing them back to work? That's sketchy right there. All right. Basically, this says they're not going to tell us how many. The number of furloughs to be allowed per service center will be disclosed internally through the week. FedEx Freight said it will not publicly release any details about the furlough totals or the centers where they will be requested. All right, so we're not going to find out how many people they're furloughing. But FedEx is one of the largest carriers in the United States. If you pull up a list of the largest trucking companies in the United States, it's just a whole bunch of LTL carriers. Most truck drivers are LTL drivers. I know that, over the road drivers think that they're, like everybody's an over the road driver that's a trucker, but that's not the case. Most truck drivers are LTL drivers. They're line haul and local drivers. More, just a whole bunch of FedEx. C.H. Robinson, third quarter earnings and revenues lag down year over year. Old Dominion Freight Line provides update for second quarter. Oh, that's back in June. You know what? I need to sort this. Hiring slows and layoffs loom. C.H. Robinson lays off about 650 employees a month ago. Yeah, there's just I should have done a filter to sort these to only see stuff over the last month. There's a bunch of old news articles in there. But let me pause this a sec. All right, so yeah, that whole, look at those articles, everything was just to show like companies are shrinking right now. So what that means is that a lot of them are still going to be hiring, but they're going to be more strict on who they hire. For the last couple of years, it's just been warm bodies in the industry. The only thing constraining companies as to who they were hiring and stuff like that is there have been two constraints over the last couple of years during the freight boom. Number one has been insurance requirements, and number two has been equipment. There's been, if you remember, there was, huge delays in getting trucks and getting trailers. Like, it was really hard for companies to get trucks and trailers. There was like a 3-year backlog. Like, if you tried to buy a brand new truck, they'd tell you, yeah, there's not going to be one available for 2 or 3 years. And you'd get in a waiting list to get one of those things. So those are the two things that constrained fleets from just blowing out of proportion, like just getting massive. We would have had, if we didn't have those constraints in place, mainly the equipment, the lack of equipment kept fleets from just blowing up in size. And if we didn't have that in place, they would have absolutely crashed the freight rates long before today. They would have driven them down to absolutely nothing. But luckily, we did have those constraints in place, and it allowed the freight boom to last for a while. But so yeah, that whole spiel was just to get you to understand that things are bad right now, but they're going to get a lot worse. All of the layoffs and furloughs and the cutbacks and the shrinking of fleets, all of that just now started. The rates started dropping back in February, around February. The fuel prices have been steadily increasing since the Democrats took office. And what was that? Well, it was not whenever they were inaugurated, but whenever they actually won the election in November of 2020. So fuel prices have been rising for almost 3 years. No, wait, November 2021. It's been almost exactly 2 years, a little over 2 years. So we've had 2 years of rising expenses, and we've had about 8 to 10 months of rates going down. And they're just now finally starting to, cut back on their fleet sizes. This is the knee-jerk reaction that these large companies have. They're data-driven companies, and the data analysts they're not very good at analyzing data. They usually are working on data that's months or quarters old, and they don't really figure out what's going on until it becomes a trend. So, when the data starts, it flattens out, it stops going up and it flattens out. Well, they have to wait till the next quarter to see what the data is doing and show that we have a downward trend line. And then you have a knee-jerk reaction. That's the way all these large companies operate, is they're data-driven, and they're usually way behind the curve on things happening. And whenever they finally figure out what's happening, then there's a knee-jerk reaction, like what we're seeing right now. Everybody's just starting to lay off like crazy. Right at Christmas. Isn't this just amazing? All of these layoffs and furloughs and everything happening a couple weeks before Christmas. It's awesome. I don't really celebrate holidays, but I feel for people. I understand what Christmas means to a lot of families. It's a happy time of year. And I think, if I remember correctly, this is the time of year when we have the most suicides because of people being really depressed. And, all these layoffs and furloughs and, losing your job and everything like that happening at this time of year, it's not going to help things at all. But, yeah, things are bad. They're going to get a lot worse. And I'm not sure exactly how long it's going to last. I was thinking maybe the rates would bounce back up by the fall of 2023, but that was before the Democrats backpedaled on their war on fossil fuels and the Federal Reserve backpedaled on their interest rates. So that might actually prolong our downward cycle because it's going to allow a lot of these carriers that are just hanging on by their fingernails to stay in the game longer. If the fuel prices would have stayed high and they would have kept raising the interest rates and driving the economy down into the hole, then it would have driven a lot of trucking companies out of business really fast. And that would have allowed the imbalance of carriers to freight to balance out a little bit. And freight rates would have stabilized and they would start climbing back up. But then we also have the economy perspective of it as well. You know, the freight is, you know, freight rates are also tied in with the economy because that controls freight volume. And, you know, the amount of trucking companies is the other side of the equation that controls the freight capacity. So if things would have remained the way they were, then I think that by fall of 2023 we would have been back to decent rates. About where we're at right now or a little bit higher. But as it stands now with everything going on, I think we're just going to keep seeing a slow decline in rates. And it could last maybe a year and a half to 2 years. It may not be until summer of 2024 or fall of 2024 until we see rates bounce back up to basically where they're at right now. And then they'll, you know, keep climbing back up. Because right now, the freight rates, in my opinion, are not really bad right now. They're not great, but they're not really, really bad. So if you're sitting there thinking that, oh, you know, if rates are like this for, you know, another year and a half, that's not going to be that bad. I think rates are going to get a lot lower than they are right now. I think they're going to fall off a cliff in first quarter of 2023. And what I'm talking about as far as them bouncing back up is how long is it going to take them to get back up to where they're at right now? So I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. There's a lot of moving parts, and it's really hard to tell what's going on whenever you start having a lot of volatility. And that's what we have right now is a lot of volatility. We have a lot of moving parts, a lot of people freaking out, a lot of knee-jerk reactions, layoffs, changing policies, you know, shifting the interest rate in the other direction, opening up the, you know, the oil. There's just a lot of things happening. So we'll just have to wait and see where things go. Now let me think if there's anything else I want to talk about. This might be like the shortest video of all time. It's only 32 minutes. We've talked about so much stuff in the last half hour. Let me pause this and think if there's something else I want to talk about before I wrap it up. Well, I think I've talked enough about the economy and the freight market and, you know, the craziness that's going on in the world. There's so many other things that we could talk about. We could talk about Russia and Ukraine. Serbia and Kosovo might go to war pretty soon. You know, I talked about in the last video that I think there's a very high probability that China invades Taiwan in 2023. We could talk about that. The list goes on and on. There's a lot of shit going on in the world. But I think instead of talking about all that crazy stuff, I'll talk about some stuff, you know, kind of personal to me. I can't remember if I mentioned it at the beginning of this video, but I just got a notification. My insurance agent contacted me and told me that my house insurance basically doubled. It was $2,300 a year, and he told me that they jacked it up to $4,100 a year, $1,800 a year increase. That's huge. That is a massive increase. They keep jacking my property taxes up the absolute maximum that they can every year. There's a 5% maximum home value increase that they can do, and they max it out every single year. My appraised home value whenever I bought the house, according to the county assessor, was $205,000. It's now $286,000 that I have to pay taxes on. So I'm paying like $3,300 a year in property taxes. my insurance on the house, my agent told me that we can increase the deductible to 3,500 from 1,000, and it'll only go up to $2,800 a year instead of $4,100 a year. So I told him, yeah, let's go ahead and do that. So that's 28 and 33. What is that, like $6,100 a year? Dude, I don't know why, but I can't do that math in my head. 2,800 plus 3,300, 7,100. No. I was right, 6,100. I typoed it. I put in 3,800 instead of 2,800. So yeah, $6,100 that I'm paying for this house per year just in property taxes and insurance. $6,100 a year just in property taxes and insurance. Then I have utilities, my mortgage payment, maintenance and repairs and upkeep and stuff like that. And maintenance, repairs, and upkeep probably cost more than $6,100 a year. I've been talking off and on a lot about living full time in the truck. And I am ready to pull the trigger on that. My problem is moving out of the damn house. I have so much shit in this house. And I'm sitting here trying to think about what in the hell to do. Like, if I could just push a button and sell my house and my car instantly and be done with it, I would push that button right now and live full time in the truck this very moment. I can't do that though. Like, I'm trying to think what to do with all the stuff in my house. Do I try to sell it? Do I throw it in the trash? Like, it's a lot of shit. Like, I started thinking about it and I'm like, man, I've acquired a lot of things over the years. And I do have a plan. Like, at some point, I'm going to have to retire. I can't drive a truck forever. Who knows? We don't know what's going to happen in our lives. I may have a heart attack and die, 10 years from now while I'm still driving a truck. But I try to plan for the, possibility that maybe I'm going to live longer than that. And if I do, then I need a place to live. There's going to be eventually a point in time when I'm probably not going to be able to pass medical anymore, and I'm going to need a place to live. Like, what am I going to do at that point? Where am I going to live? And what I've thought about doing is buying like some property out in the middle of nowhere and doing off-grid living. So what I thought about doing is basically selling my house, selling my car, selling everything, living full-time in the truck, bank up some money for a couple of years, buy a property somewhere, and then, slowly over time on my time off, I would just park the truck on the property, and I would probably pay somebody to build a pole barn for me, or a frame barn, whatever you want to call it. And then I would, myself would build like a little house inside the pole barn. I don't know how to describe it other than that, but basically have somebody else build the basic frame of the pole barn and get, a pole barn built. And then I would go in there and basically do kind of like a frame house inside the pole barn, use like half the barn to build a house. I want to be able to park the truck in the other half. And I also want to have a section open to park, vehicles in as well. So like it would be a massive pole barn, probably cost me $150,000 to have it built. And then I would go in and slowly over time, I myself would build, like I would turn half of it into a living space. Have solar, have a septic system installed out there, well water, just completely off-grid living. And that way, like my expenses would be basically nothing. Like you could find properties that are out in the middle of nowhere that are like $80 a year in property taxes. And that would be like my only expense would be that like $80 a year in property taxes. aside from upkeep and maintenance. Um, but the way I figure it is like I am way upside. Like I'm not upside down. I'm right side up on the house and my car. I could sell the house and the car for a substantial profit, probably well in excess of $150,000 profit. Um, and just trucking, living in the truck and making money like normal. I could keep adding to that little thing of money. And the property shouldn't be that expensive. You can buy, I don't need a ton of land, like maybe 10, 20 acres tops. And I might be able to buy the property for 20 or $30,000, maybe even cheaper than that. It just kind of depends on location. And then have the pole barn built on it. I'd probably have to pay somebody to come out and dig a septic for me and stuff like that. There are certain things that I would probably have to pay other people to do for me. And then just buying the materials, and it would be one of those things where I just park the truck for a month and I spend a month like working on the house, and I would be living in the truck still, while it's parked there. But I thought that would be like a nice thing to do, to build toward, for a place to retire at. And then when I finally get like 70 years old or whatever and I decide to call it quits, I've got a place that's paid off, it's off grid, it's cheap to live. um and I don't really have to worry about really big expenses. Even if I just live off social security, it should be enough to pay all my bills. I don't know. Those are my thoughts. And that's something I've been thinking about for a while. And the huge increases in my property taxes and my insurance and basically, everything I'm dumping into this house has just made me want to do it that much more. So I'm thinking about like what I might start doing on my time off is packing shit up. And instead of selling and getting rid of my stuff, I think I might put it into some kind of storage. I don't know where I would store it because honestly, I don't know where I want to buy property. The only thing I know for sure is I want to buy property in a state that does not have state income tax. I would love to move back to Nevada. I love Nevada. I used to live in Nevada. I love Nevada, but there's a massive migration from California into Nevada and Arizona, and they're pushing those states to become more liberal. Like Nevada was like this really wide open wild west. A lot of people, they uh they like pair the the prostitution that's legal in Nevada as being really far left. I see that as being very far right, because really far right is just like a lot of personal freedoms. What is prostitution hurting anyone? Like if the girl is willing to do that for a living and the guy is willing to pay for it, like what is the government like? Why does the government step in there? Now I do have a problem with like sex trafficking, but like I think prostitution should be legal everywhere. I personally would not partake in it, but there's a lot of things that I personally wouldn't do. Like I don't do drugs or alcohol, but like I don't have a problem with drugs and alcohol being legal. Even though I don't care how legal they get, I would never participate in it. I'm just all about personal freedom. As long as it doesn't affect somebody else. If you want to get, wasted on drugs and then get behind the wheel of a vehicle, I think that they should throw the book at you as far as the law goes, because you just went out and endangered a bunch of people's lives. Um, but anyway, I'm hesitant to go to Nevada because of the far left people that are moving in and trying to change the state. So I thought about Wyoming, but I just can't stand Wyoming. Like it's the really nice areas of Wyoming are way too expensive to live in. Um, and then the other places in Wyoming are still really expensive. Land in Wyoming is fairly pricey, and it's really, really windy. It's like that's one of the things I really hate is high wind areas. And I live in Oklahoma, a state that's known for wind. So I don't know. There's a lot of things to consider. I don't really want to live in Florida. Florida does not have state income tax, but I still don't really want to live in Florida. It's just too damn hot, too damn humid in Florida. I don't like high humidity. So I keep thinking Texas is the state for me. Probably West Texas, out in the desert area, the drier climate. Northwest Texas, like Amarillo, would probably be a good area, somewhere in that area. I don't know. So basically, the point I'm making is I still haven't decided exactly where I want to live. So I don't know where in the hell to put a storage unit. So I would probably get a storage unit here in Oklahoma City if I still at that point whenever I decide to do that, if I still have absolutely no idea where I want to move, I would just get a storage unit here in Oklahoma City. Because it would be very expensive to go and replace like a lot of the stuff that I would be getting rid of in this house, I would need if I got into another house, if I built my other house, bed, washer and dryer, just all like there's so many things, and it all adds up. If you never bought a house and had to go through the process of buying all of the little things, it adds up to a lot of money. Just buying curtains for this house, I probably spent over $1,000 buying curtains. The people who sold the house took everything out of the house. They took the curtains, they took everything. And, being in a house without any kind of curtains or anything, you got people can see in your house. So that was one of the first things that I was like, man, I got to put up some curtains. Like, there's a lot of foot traffic around the neighborhood, and I'd be like standing in the dining room, and people be out in my front yard looking over at me like, "What the hell are you doing naked?" I just wave. But anyway, yeah, all of it adds up. It's a lot of money. So, I, a storage unit would probably cost me like $100 a month. You know what? I haven't looked at the price of storage units in a long time. They used to cost $100 a month. Let's see how much they are now. Wow. I haven't looked at a lot of places, but like $100 a month only gets you a 10 by 10 storage unit. 10 feet by 10 feet. Shit, you cannot put very much in a 10 by 10. I wonder how tall it is. Um, yeah, and like a 12 foot by 30 foot is $325 a month. So if I had the stuff in there for like 10 years, then I could have bought all new stuff for what it costs to store it. So yeah, maybe I will just look at getting rid of it because it looks like storage, the storage unit costs are getting kind of ridiculous. Huh. 10 by 10 is $100. Wow. Let me pause this and look at another one. All right, here's another place that is not a U-Haul branded place that's much cheaper. A 10 by 20 unit is $120 a month. So what I could do is put the stuff in there. $120 a month, I could float that. You know, if it's in the range of $100 a month, yeah, I could do that. And what I could do is whenever I buy the property, I can buy like a little shed to put on the property, or I can just build a little shed on the property. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. I can just go, you know, get the materials and build a little shed on the property. Um, and then I can move the items from the storage unit over to the property. And put them in that little shed that I build and keep them in there until I get, you know, everything else built. Huh. Yeah, so that's probably what I'll do is just put the stuff that I want to keep in a storage unit. Because, yeah, it would be really, really hard to um, to replace everything that I have. Like I have a lot of computer equipment, servers. I have a server rack, you know, like you see at a data center, you know, things like that. I just bought these two air conditioning units that are like $800 a piece. These window unit air conditioners. There's a whole bunch of stuff like that that I have in the house. Like I have a 500-foot roll of pure copper cable that that thing probably costs, you know, a couple $100 right now, and I'm gonna need copper cable um, to do the networking in my, you know, new house that I build. That'll still be good cable. You know, it doesn't degrade over time very much, so I should still be able to use that cable. Let me pause and see how expensive that is now. Oh, it looks like it's about the same price, if not cheaper. So about $150 for that 500-foot roll. So that's one of the things that actually hasn't gone up in price. But still, that's $150 that I'd have to spend. I have just tons and tons of little things like that. So yeah, what I think I'm going to start doing is on my days off when I'm at home, I'm going to start packing. Get everything packed into boxes and ready to move. And once I have a lot of the house packed up and cleaned up and, you know, everything organized, then I'll get in touch with a realtor, see what they have to say about selling the house, and then I'll, you know, probably pay, you know, the two guys in a truck to move all the stuff from the house over to a storage unit, and then sell the house and sell the car. Just live full time in the truck until I buy, you know, some property somewhere. Hmm. This sounds like a good plan. And this would be a lot of money per year that I would not be spending. Not only would I make money off of the sales, you know, selling the house, I would make a profit. Selling the car, I would make a profit. And then I wouldn't have, what are my monthly expenses? Probably $2,500 a month for the house, just with, you know, all the utility bills and everything. I have a $500 a month car payment. I think I've still got another year before the car is paid off. I think I owe like $5,000 on the car. I can check that. Let me check that real quick. $4,200 left on the car. So at 500 a month, 4,200 divided by 500, um, it's going to be paid off in 8.5 months. So 8, 9 months, the car will be paid off. I probably will not have the house sold by that time because I'm also going to be careful about selling the house. I'm not going to, like, we're going into this economic slump right now and rising interest rates and everything. I don't want to sell the house whenever like the economy is tanking and nobody's buying houses and I have to sell it dirt cheap. I'm not in a position where I'm desperate to sell the house. So I will wait until it's a good, time to sell the house. Um, the best time to sell the house probably would have been last year with the housing market just booming like crazy, or maybe the year before that. Um, but we will have another housing boom. They're cyclical, just like trucking, and it'll happen again. So I'll probably wait until then to sell the house. But I'm not saying I'm going to sell the house in a month or two, but it's I'll probably still be in the house for another year, maybe 2 years, and I'll just slowly over the time just start packing everything up, throwing as much away as I can, and just trying to get the house in a position to get moved out and get sold. So that's some personal stuff about me, just some things that I'm thinking about doing. This is definitely not the house I want to retire in. It's just too damn big and too damn expensive. I don't know if I've talked about how big the house is on the channel, but this is a 2-story, 5-bedroom, 3.5 bath. It's over 3,400 square foot house. It's a pretty damn big house. It's one of the biggest houses in the neighborhood. And the only reason I bought it was because it was a really good deal. Like I could have flipped the house immediately and made a profit because I haggled them down to such a good price. So I'm kind of regretting the purchase though. I mean, I can make a lot of money on the house, but the moving in and out part of it, I don't like doing that. And yeah, I'm kind of wishing I would have bought like a really small, cheap house. Oh, I don't know. That's what's going on with me. I think I'll wrap up the video there. We're approaching an hour. And I need to go to bed. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I plan on waking up at about 3 a.m. So if I go to bed by 5 p.m., that'll be like 10 hours. 5 p.m. to 3 a.m. is 10 hours, right? 5 to midnight is 7 plus 3 is 10. So yeah, I should probably go and start getting ready for bed. I'll probably spend about a half hour going around and making sure that I've got everything prepped to go tomorrow. And then the next videos that I make will be, I might make a video when I'm headed to the truck tomorrow. Who knows? I'll probably wait until I get into the truck. So the next videos I make, I'll actually be back out over the road doing the things. So I hope you're doing well out there. This is a zero-sum game. We're all in competition with each other. So I don't really hope that everyone does well. But, if you're a good business owner and, you're good for the industry, then I hope you make it through this. The people that know what they're doing and are good for the industry will survive this. And the people that have no idea what they're doing and are probably bad for the industry are most likely going to fail. So hopefully you've got your business set up pretty good and you know what you're doing and you survive this. So good luck out there. Have a good one. Bye.